Warriors World Different Place Book 1, Let the Dark Votes Lie. Nap time. Taking a break from putting tar and plaster over each hole in the highly damaged wask house, the tray decided under the backyard tree would be best. Or rather, Knuckles sat down for 1 second needing alone time, and suddenly Sonic and Tails followed suit. Them getting over their fear of him got to be a nuisance, but Knuckles stayed in their old cuddle pile, hating how used to it he was now. An arm interrupted the warrior's musings, hitting him in the snout. Knuckles glared, watching a squirming Sonic pout and bite his lip. Must be a dream, one the hedgehog had frequently, short whispers he often heard.
I'm not worthy, but I really am. I'm sorry, please? Sam enough. Don't let Lord say it. You were right. I'm no match for you. Just let me say goodbye first.
That last one made Knuckles grunt, despite hearing the sentence over and over again every night. On one glove, he misjudged the hedgehog's determination, while on the other, he knew killing Sonic still had its merits. Ultimately, Knuckles couldn't do the deed. Sonic may be a force that has little right to exist, but he deserves better. That Hedgehog wanted to do right, and make the world an easier place to live in. Knuckles agreed on his perspective wholeheartedly. He was more willing to get the hard work done, however, if need be. Sonic awoke with a start, seeing the red Echidna sitting next to him as his sight returned. The blue blur yelled, using his hands to pull himself backward, doing the crab unironically. Tails, meanwhile, sleepily raised his head from Knuckles' leg.
Get away.
Tails yawned.
Worm, Sonic, go back to sleep!
Knuckles took note of the kid's delicious sleep-deprived state, nozzling his fox ears into the warrior's kneecap. Knuckles didn't mind. All right, time to deal with the idiot Blur, who was pointing at him, terror-evident.
You had another night now!
Sonic, realizing where he was, and real events unlocking, got defensive.
You don't know what it's like.
Knuckles gave him a lazy once-over.
Like?
Sonic, bearing the faded images of Longclaw, his former old guardian, getting ripped apart at the Echidna tribe in the latest nightmare, bonked his head with each covered hand. Sonic knew the mental picture that came next. Eden and Knuckles inside the cave on Angle Island, while Tails innocently deciphered the center statue's messages, until Sonic witnessed his nemesis, one of them, attack those metal wings, the other, Dr. Robotic, clapping in delight. As he knew, except, as the blue hedgehog stayed glued to the spot, Knuckles shoved Tails out of the way to deliver the final blow to the old statue. No, 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 his mommy, Longclaw. The statue Longclaw fell, unmoving, a ripe empty socket to where her heart should be. Sonic also fell to his knees, watching as a metal feather landed delicately on his open palm. Knuckles stood, sneering. Sonic subconsciously felt the tears fall. The real Knuckles must have gotten up, as he heard stomps come towards him. That monster, raised by monsters, all of his kind, monsters. Tails, fully awake, jumped in between the two, raising his hands. Knuckles motioned for him to go inside. This likely will get ugly. Tails shook his head, but Sonic made the same motion. Teeth gritted. The kid complied, unbeknownst to them, grabbing his hearing device in the garage quickly to hear their conversation, letting the headphones fall on his long for years, sitting on Tom's stool chair, putting his special contraption on the rounded table where he often saw the man tinker on his car, a couple fenders still laid out. Sonic wasted no time, speaking with a certain amount of stiffness.
Monster.
Knuckles did not reply immediately, letting his response be calculated.
These nightmares about my tribe are nightmares. Don't disrespect my kind, and let your unfeeble imagination taunt you.
Knuckles stayed calm, which made Sonic livid. Tears still falling, he screamed, letting out his true inner thoughts.
Every time I look at you, I see them. They killed my initial mom. You wanted to kill me. Get them out of your stupid head. Listen, for once, how could you stand by them? How could you help them and her?
Sonic whimpered. He let his clenched fists fall, face dropping to stare at the ground, afraid of the answer. Knuckles did display a arrangement. He knew his tribe wanted Sonic, and an owl was destroyed for withholding information on his location. Thinking back, he would have been about 6 or 7, too young for the hunt. Knuckles sighed.
I give you my word. I was too young to do or say anything to make a difference. My training was more important. That hunt you only killed.
Sonic slowly gained back his courage as Knuckles continued.
It never felt personal, but that is how our kind operated. Do, and not think about your potential victim. At least, I believe so. I have too.
Knuckles' message his sore snout. He did not have a purpose without their care, and he could not allow himself to think they spread a lot more falsehoods than he originally predicted. That is just how it is. Sonic spoke up.
So, you leave me over your own.
Knuckles sighed again.
I am sorry.
Sonic's red-end eyes got real wide. An apology from the Winter Soldier. Knuckles didn't know what else to say, how to explain his conflicted emotions. Sonic understood. He was deceived for most of his life, and changing viewpoints was unlikely. But at least the guy took his word into account, after a bunch of bogus fights. Tails slammed open the back door, tripping over a pot that Maddie had yet to fill with seeds. Barely an inconvenience, Tails shook his device in front of their faces.
Guys, I figured out the malfunction in the hearing device. I needed to add an electric circuit to magnify the signal. Isn't that great?
Tails jumped in excitement, when his ears drooped slightly and he shyly looked at their unblinking eyes.
Oh, we're all friends. Sorry, help. Conversation 2.
Knuckles started to walk away. To his great displeasure, Sonic and Tails followed him to the tins containing their supplies, brushes, leftover wooden structure scraps, and mint trays. Maddie and Tom were impressed with their work when they got back from the grocery store. Knuckles once again took notice of Sonic wiggling, while in his makeshift cot. Tails and him were given weighted blankets next to Sonic's cot, though Tails often sneaked in Sonic's, claiming it felt more comfortable. Knuckles paid attention to every single twitch, and groaned that Sonic let out. Being trained to analyze your bearings if possible, the warrior could discern that this was his own fault. Simply being in the room seemed to put Sonic on edge. In dreams, but sometimes the waking world additionally, the night sky was filled with stars. As he looked in the window, Knuckles favored nature over these human interferences, so he knew where to go to sleep. Leaning over Tails, who decided to stay in his wool-coated blanket tonight, the red echidna crept through the house, trying to ignore how Sonic's whimpers instantly got better, like some sort of sixth sense when he got to the staircase. Knuckles held his breath for a moment, soaking up his emotions, and letting it out. He did not need these feelings. Putting a spike palm gently on the back door, what they call a dog named Ozzy, came up behind him. Knuckles gave the dog a stern shushing sound. Alone time was his only wish at this point. No need to get the humans involved. Ozzy tended to bark when Knuckles entered a room. Smart creature. Being on guard for its family, the dog did not bark this time. He wagged his tail at the red being. What did this behavior entail? Knuckles tilted his head. A smack sounded. The warrior felt like dragging his face across the wall. This dog had just used its paw to wave at him, hitting one of the many trays still filled with tried plastic. Unfortunate. Considering, the red echidna decided to stay up to get more of the work done. Being useful did bring him a sense of satisfaction. And Sonic couldn't make him feel guilt whenever he had that awful nightmare if he left soon enough. Besides, he knew he was not exactly a likable person, which he did not mind, but it bothered him when others did. so brushing past the dog, giving the creature a decent shove to go back upstairs to the human's room, which did nothing. He went over to the kitchen to get the appropriate scraper. Hours went by. Ozzy took a sitting position, panting. Knuckles didn't think he was that entertaining. Almost done with the right section of the first hole he punched Sonic into, he accidentally kicked his tool under the couch. Grunting, he attempted to use his gloved hand to fetch it, which proved to be difficult. His hand was too big. Well, if he took the glove off, no, the warrior made a face of disgust. He had promised himself not to do that under any circumstances. A true guardian never shows weakness. Still, no one had gotten up in the past couple hours, and the dark-tinted windows showed night was still here. Maybe he could. Slowly, he pulled the glove off, witnessing all the scars he had gotten in his youth. His left glove, which he refused to pull off as well, would show the same. Unable to correctly patch himself up, the bruises and cuts soon turned into faded scars. He did not need this weakness of letting himself get hurt. Yet they remained, driving his dark thoughts in a mental box, and picturing the key being melted into liquid. He quickly got the now dusty scraper. Good. Now he can. Sliding the scraper away from the couch, he suddenly felt something, wet, slobbery, whatever it was. His unmasked and got the brunt of the assault. Spinning around, he saw the culprit, Ozzy.
Stop with it.
Knuckles sneered, shoving his hand out of reach. He glared, trying to hide his spit-induced injury out of the thing's kind brown eyes.
Don't talk.
He knew the dog could not understand him on most sentences, but he said it anyway, like a coping mechanism. Letting his tail drop down, Ozzy stared, waiting. Knuckles turned away, his back to him, trying to wipe off the slobber. Knowing the substance harmless, he saw Ozzy greet others this way. Unfortunately, Ozzy went over to sniff at the warrior's side. Knuckles flinched, hating the sensation the action caused. The dog seemed curious. Going to his other side, Knuckles forced himself to push through and ignore it. Focusing on getting his glove back from a white-painted shelf he had left it on, his mouth twitching on its own accord, his smell most fascinate the dog, going from dimension to dimension with the rings. But at the moment, Knuckles couldn't focus on theories. A smile let itself known when Ozzy took his vulnerable position to nuzzle his belly, letting out a snicker. Knuckles jerked back, not sure what happened, knowing he was not the person to chuckle or smile often. Okay, he should go to the shed to protect the emerald like he originally thought, get some shut-eye, and forget this ever occurred. His former project forgotten, Knuckles started to get up from where he had landed on his chest.
Never do that again, or I will end you.
Ozzy bowed his head as Knuckles applied some strength in holding its jaw after getting up. He still had a slight smirk on his face, however, shivering slightly from the slobber and chill of the night. He remembered something.
Go to Tails. Go on.
He waved both hands forward.
Protect.
Tails got cold easily, and frankly, he did not want to hear about it in the morning. Ozzy gave his scared hand one last nuzzle before doing as he was told. The event done with, Knuckles grabbed his glove off the shelf, thinking how a dog saw interest in something so fragile as scars. Opening the back door with purpose, Knuckles went over to the shed. Using the controller under the gardener pot next to the structure, he hit the off button, which was red, so he could figure out this stitch object easier. Laying his head over the side of the ultimate source of power, positioned in a small crate, he simply imagined sleeping with no company would be simpler.